Hi students, today we are going to see about database security, database injection in web application security. So we will start the lecture of today's class. Database security. Database injection. Right. So there are based on this injection types, there are three categories of injection. One is known as SQL injection, and another is known as code injection, and final one is command injection. So these are the three types of injections that are occurring in web applications, and mainly they are targeting to the database injection. So if you see this category, SQL injection and code injection are directly attacking the database, where command injection is an injection where it attacks the operating system. Okay, so this is the introduction part for database injection. So it is the most commonly known types of attack, and it targets the SQL database, right? So since it is SQL injection, it is targeting the SQL database. Either it provide the injection, the malicious user provide their own parameters to the executing existing SQL query, or to escape an SQL query and provide their own query, right? Either they will include their parameters, or they will provide their own query in the SQL injection. And this leads to escalating the permission. The malicious user will escalate the permission, and they will be granted the admin privilege to access the database. So there are two major components: an interpreter and a payload from a user, right? So interpreter is nothing but if you want to execute an SQL query, an interpreter is mandatory, which will convert the SQL query to the information that should be derived from the database. So this type of injection occurs against command line utilities like FFmpeg, which is nothing but a video compressor, as well as it is also against the database, as I said, as a traditional SQL injection. Right, so either it can occur in the video compressor or in the database. Now let's take a look of several forms of injection attacks, and the first form what we are going to see is SQL injection. All the injection types which is going to affect the API, and it is passing the payload through the API in the form of query. So this is the overall structure of SQL injection. If you see this figure, you can able to understand it. And SQL strings are passed as a HTTP payload, right? So after the question mark, whatever we are passing as HTTPS :/ and then the domain name followed by question mark and then the parameters, right? So this is the place where we are passing the queries, and this place the queries will be inserted as a HTTP request, right? That is what represented as SQL string is escaped in a HTTP payload, leading to custom SQL queries being executed on behalf of end user. End user is an authenticated user, where the user one is treated as malicious user. Okay, now let's see start the flow of this SQL injection attack. A user sends a payload to an API endpoint with SQL escape characters and SQL code. So the escape character can be of single quotes, or it can be of question mark equal to, or it can be of Boolean condition checking like 1 is equal to 1, right? So single quote or whatever it may be, right? So these are some of the special escape characters that are used for injection and SQL code. So the endpoint queries a database based on the user's input. The SQL interpreter is escaped and the user SQL query is run, changing the user to admin. Right, so admin privilege is given to the malicious user. The result may or may not reflect to the user, but the query has run and it has done its damage. Right, so that is what represented in this representation of SQL injection. Okay, next we will move on to the next page, second page. Okay, so here actually most probably the SQL injection is occurred in PHP based web pages, and the PHP page web pages consist of SQL, HTML, and PHP for their web page creation. And OSS represents here open source software package, right? So OSS represents open source software package, which is built using a combination of PHP and SQL, right? So, so this is an example of how we are injecting the escape character on a query using this PHP code, right? So if you see here, this is the PHP code which starts here using the stack, and it is requesting for the post method, and here we are having form method is equal to action and remaining and all heading, centering, label, and this is the text input where username is equal to username, and then next one is also a text input where password is equal to password, and this is what the web page information consists of. Then we are having a one button to submit. So if the button is clicked, it will activate the form method is equal to post and action. Right. So and in the else part, the included in the else part is what is the server name to get the IP of that server, and username, MySQL username, right? So to connect it to the database, we need the username and password. That is what assigned here. And password MySQL password, database MySQL DB, and port is equal to port to which the process it has to communicate, that will be decided by this. And the database connection is established by creating this line. Database is equal to new MySQL line. Server name, username, password, database, and so if the connection is successful, it will not execute this if part. If it is not successful, it will echo failed to connect to MySQL. And if it is success, what it will do? It will assign this SQL variable equal to. So we are querying a particular data to the database once the connection is established. So that query consists of select user ID, username, admin, moderator from user, where username is equal to, they are representing the name which is there in the URL as post, and password is equal to using the encrypted password for SHA encryption, and that password. Right. So if you see here, we have used a single quotes between the double quotes. So before the double quotes, one single quote is used. And here also we are using the same single quote for ending, and similarly for password also, username as well as the password. And the result is stored in this result variable. Whatever data that is retrieved from this SQL query, that will be stored in this result, right? So to the database which we have created, right? So this database we have created, and it will store the content from the SQL query to the result. Right. So next we will move on to the next page. So this SQL query is generated based on the concatenation of query parameters with no sanitization occurring prior to the query string is being generated. Right, so this is due to the monitoring as well as sanitizing the query parameters. If it is not configured properly, sanitization will be violated, and there will be no sanitization, and it will automatically affect the database. So interweaving of HTML, PHP, and SQL code most definitely made SQL injection much easier for PHP-based web application, that already I have told you. And the largest open source system PHP application like WordPress have fallen victim. So this is one of the example. Nowadays, PHP becomes obsolete, and it is nearly reduced from 5% of 5% from 5% of attack to 1%, less than 1%, right? SQL injection, mostly it attacks PHP web applications. Since PHP is becoming obsolete, it is reduced from 5% to 1%. So this is this 1% of representation, here they have given another example for Node.js Express.js server. And this time one of the communication with an SQL database. So if you see here, here SQL is required Microsoft SQL, that is what MS SQL. And we are representing the post method. For this, the endpoint / users and function request response. And then user ID is equal to request dot parameter user ID. So whatever parameter is passed in the HTTP, that parameter is assigned for this user ID. And then we are await for the SQL to connect, make a connection, right? So my MS SQL username password at localhost / database. And the result is stored in this result variable. Await SQL.query, select asterisk from user, where user is equal to user ID. Right? So the malicious code or malicious escape character can be included in this place of this parameter passing. That is what the user ID is. Right? So if it is success, it will return the JSON format of the result. Right? So JSON format of the result will be displayed to the user. So in this example, a developer used direct string concatenation to attach the query param to the SQL query. So that is what I have shown here. Concatenation is nothing but the query string concatenated with the user ID, right? So that is what concatenation. And this assumes the query param being sent over the network has not been tampered with, which we know not to be a reliable metric for legitimacy, right? So that is what represented, and we will see some examples how this user ID is passed as malicious using escape characters. Right. So as I said before, so here this is the one of the examples for how we are passing as escape character. If the user ID is equal to 1 is equal to 1, that means the user ID will be true for all the cases and it will retrieve all the content that is based on the query that what we are sending. And the next type of user ID is equal to, so if you see here, one more query is also integrated along with the user ID, right? So the user ID is 123 ABC semicolon followed by one more query, right? So already there is one, if you see the previous one, there is one more, there is a query, right? Select asterisk from user where user is equal to, right? Along with this, we are going to include that user ID. So while we are adding the user ID, what we are doing, we are adding one more query to the user ID. That is what drop table uses. What it will do, it will modify the table and it will delete all the content of the table. Right, so these are the two examples, and third example, if you see here, so here we have deleted the table, drop table, it will delete the table which is named as user. Here if you see 123 ABC is the user ID, and it will update user set credit equal to 10,000 where user is equal. So that means it will increase the credit level of, so if it is a bank application and if he is having zero balance in his account, automatically 10,000 will be credited to his account, right? So this update query will update the content of the particular user ID, and the credit of that column will be incremented by 10,000. So that's all about SQL injection. So in SQL injection, majorly affected web application is designed with PHP, and nowadays it has been reduced from 5% to 1%. And this SQL injection is of two categories. Either we can use escape characters or it can use any other queries that is concatenated with the existing queries, right? So that is what given here. Next, we are going to see about code injection. So code injection compared to SQL injection, this code injection also needs a SQL interpreter or an API, right? So whatever we are sending as HTTP request or whatever we are requesting from the web application, that has to communicate through API. So that is what represented here. SQL injection is just a subset of injection, and it is categorized as injection because it involves an interpreter, right? And this results because of improper sanitization, and it should allow only specific parameters from the user to be read into the interpreter. If it is sanitized properly, it will allow only specific parameters, otherwise it will allow malfunctioned parameters into the database. So the command line interface called by an API endpoint is provided with additional unexpected commands due to lack of sanitization. So this code injection is based on CLI, where unexpected commands are given to this API through CLI. So we will move on to the next page. So this is how the command line, the code injection works. The workflow of code injection is given here. A user tampers with the HTTP request, adding custom commands to the request. An API runs command into the local CLI. The custom requests are added to the command string. Right. So whatever command the API runs along with the custom request, it will be appended to the CLI command. The local CLI interpreter the command string and execute its content. Interprets the content and command string interprets the command string and executes its content. The CLI performs unintended operation. So there are two types of operations. Worst case, the command escapes the CLI and permit raw code execution in the web application side. Best case, the command does not escape the CLI but still alter the CLI intended functionality. Only the functionality of the CLI changes, which will not affect the web application, but in the worst case, it will allow the code to be executed in the API. So there are, as mentioned earlier, there are many lesser known styles of code injection that do not rely on database. These are less common for a number of reasons, and every complex web application today relies on database for storing and retrieving user data. So obviously CLI comes into picture where we are passing the commands through the CLI. Right. Code injection are harder to research, not because they are less common. Code injection is application specific. Right. So it will affect the application. That is what I specified. If the command is, if it allow the code to be executed, it will affect the API of web application. But not every web application will make use of the other CLI interpreter that can be controlled via API endpoint. So this is an example for Megabank image or video compression server. In that image or video compression coding part, how we can inject the code along with inject the code along with the existing code that we will see. Okay. So this server is the collection of REST API located at this particular URL. So this API consists of two post method and two get method. One is to post the image and another to post the video. Similarly, to get the image and get the video. So next we will move on to the next page. So the endpoint upload image is simple Node.js endpoint that looks something like this. So this is what they have given here. So, so this is taken from Web Application Security textbook. So here we are defining a variable image min equal to require image min. Image min is nothing but it is a function that what we are using to convert the given image file in the compressed format, PNG file to JPEG file. So this is a variable what is defined, and another next one more variable image in JPEG transition, require image in JPEG transition, and we are representing one more variable require FS, right? So these are required that are gathered and stored in the corresponding variable. Next, app.post upload image. Function request response. If the session is authenticated, if it is not authenticated, then it has to return the error code 401. If it is authenticated, then it has to write the file synchronous image raw request body dot name dot png request body dot image, right? So for the request body dot image, it will generate the png format for that image. And then here, this is the compressed image format. We are defining a variable and asynchronous function. So constant result, this is the response. Response RES is equal to a white image min, where what we have represented as raw image request body dot name dot png, that is passed here, and that will be compressed to JPG. Image compressed request body dot name dot JPG. And this result will be returned back, right? If the connection is established, it will do all those processes. And next, what we are representing, if it returns the response, then we are representing result is equal to avoid compress image and return result dot status 200, which is a success status, right? 200. And it will return the information in the JSON format as a reply. So the same thing is explained in the coding part. Okay, so once again, based on the above program, here this is what the HTML code represents. We are representing the image as an image file. Image SRC is equal to that URL what we have represented as PNG file. That representation is given here. And this type of code attack make use of this improper sanitization of CLI attached to an API, right? So that is what highlighted here. So if you see here, this default options is also sent along with the query what we are representing, along with the content what we are representing in the CLI. So app.post upload video function request response, and this is already checking for authentication. If it is not authenticated, error with 401. Otherwise, it will do the remaining things. Request body dot video. So previous one is for image and this one is for video. And request body dot name and default options. This is what the option which is executed as the code along with the code which is already there, right? So option is equal to default options plus request body dot option, right? So along with the body options, this option will also be concatenated, right? So which should not be there, but it is concatenated through due to improper sanitization in the API. The CLI will execute and you will get the malicious output. So the execute command of the same is given here, video data, video name and options. So here the options can be of any one of this example. Option can be of this type of option or this type of option. So it will allow the CLI to invoke additional commands based on the structure of CLI. Next slide. So same thing is represented here. So this CLI supports multiple commands and that multiple commands can be implemented using any one of this line break, space or ampersand. And here we are using line breaks to represent the combination of user specified option along with the existing option. So next is command injection. With command injection, and so far we have seen about code injection, which utilizes the improper sanitization of CLI in API. And there are two types of representation. One is for image and another one is for video. And next we are going to see for command injection. So in this command injection, API endpoint generates bash commands. So since it is of bash commands, it will affect directly the kernel of the operating system. It includes a request form of a client. A malicious user adds custom commands that modify normal operation of the API. Right, so it will modify the normal operation of the API as seen in the figure below. So I will explain the figure in the next slide. So we have also learned the command injection is an elevated form of code injection, where rather than performing unintended action against the CLI or interpreter, we are performing unintended actions against an OS. So that is what I have already told before starting the topic. Code injection and SQL injection is targeting the database, where this command is targeting the operating system. Next slide. So this is the figure that explains this command injection. So a user tampers with the HTTP request, adding custom bash command to the request. The API executes bash command against the server, adding its custom bash commands. The bash interpreter executes the command provided by the API that were sent by the user. The system is fully compromised. So since it is if this type of command is very complex to implement, because but if it is implemented, it will affect more number of systems overall in the world, because 95% of the systems are Unix based servers, so that it will allow it will if it allows to execute this type of command injection, then all the servers will be affected, right? So a compromised OS gives the hacker access to number of very integral files and permissions. So these are the some of the folders which will be affected if that particular commands are executed. So password folder, which is in etc. Similarly, shadow folder, encrypted password for users, and .ssh secure socket. We are establishing a remote login using this SSH, right? So that will also contain this communicating with other system like Apache, other systems. And next is for Apache server. Apache server HTTP configuration file will be affected if the command is executed. And next one is for engines based servers, right? So it will also potentially give write permission against these files. Actually, these files are protected and you cannot able to modify these files. Only read permission is provided. And some in some other systems, read permission is also not prohibited for this Unix-based operating system. But if this command injection is executed, it will allow these files with the write permissions against these files in addition to read permission. So next slide. And these are some of the points that are implemented if the command injection is allowed. Add an additional database user with write access, right? So it will allow the user to add additional database user along with the existing user who is not authenticated to enter, and delete important files. Important files will be deleted, wipe the server and kill it. Make use of integration with other servers. If he wants to integrate with its own websites, that is also possible. And change a single login from in the web application to be phishing form, right? So duplicate websites will be created, and it will attract the users to get information from their website, and log the admins out and blackmail them, right? So these are some of the things they can do if it is compromised using the commands. So the most dangerous types of attacks a hacker has in their toolkit. One of these mitigations on Unix-based operating system is a robust permission system that may be able to mitigate some of the risk by reducing the damage that could be caused by a compromised endpoint. Unfortunately, most of the application at the risk of command injection do not take the steps to create advanced user permission file. So this is an example for representation. So again, we are having three variables. One is for child process, another is to require FS, and another is for safe converter for converting the video. And our next line is for posting the video through this endpoint upload video. Function is for request and response messages. If it is not authenticated, 401 error code. Otherwise, it has to do this following code. Videos raw request body name, request body video, and save converter convert the video, and this is the converted video name. Then it has to execute this. So if after converting, it is executing this, which is the command that is passed through this program. Execute remove video raw request.body.name and return result.status is equal to success. So if this code consists of remove video, which is there already there in the code, the hacker will utilize this and they will update their commands based on this content. So there are several operations in this example. Write a video to this video's raw and convert the raw video. Video is converted and we remove the raw video. These are the 3 points that are available in the program. So now however, in this example, the line that removes the raw video file exe remove video relies on unsanitized user input to determine the name of the video file to remove it. So the name is not parameterized, but instead it is concatenated to the bash command, right? So since it is concatenated, so this is how it can be concatenated and sent along with the post command. Ampersand is used to concatenate it. So my video.mp4 concatenated with remove that videos converted within that folder video/converter. Right. So with this we are concluding that how this command injection works. So totally we have seen 3 injections: SQL, code, and command, and how it works with an example of React code as well as PHP code, right? So thank you for watching my lecture. Thank you.